Chapter 14. Blood on the Altar, New Orleans. July 1925. The air in St. Roch's Cemetery crackled with dark energy, the full moon's silver light bathing the clearing in an otherworldly glow. The ritual circle glowed with an unholy red, its crescent moon symbols pulsing like a heartbeat, the scent of blood and ash thick in the humid night. Julien Dubois stood at the edge of the clearing, the anointed silver medallion in his hand, its light flaring like a small sun, burning with the power of Mama Zora's potion and Father Antoine's holy water. His revolver was raised, his dark eyes locked on Victor Leroux, who stood over the stone altar, a dagger poised above the bound young woman, her screams echoing through the graves. AT-35, Julien was a man forged in the fire of his past, his Creole heritage, his Catholic faith, and the supernatural truth he could no longer deny converging in this moment. The spirit girl from his childhood, her hollow eyes in the bayou, had marked him as the Marked One, the final piece of Leroux's ritual to achieve immortality beyond vampirism. Julien's hand brushed the rosary in his pocket, a reflex that felt more like a battle cry than a prayer, his heart pounding with the weight of what he was about to do. He'd lost too much already, his father to an unsolved case, a love to the city's cruelty, but he wouldn't lose Celeste or Eloise or the innocent girl on that altar. Victor Leroux turned to face him, his tall, lean frame draped in a black robe, his sharp features twisted into a snarl, his red eyes glowing with rage and hunger. His fangs glinted in the torchlight, his voice a hiss that cut through the night. "You dare interrupt me, Marked One," he snarled, lowering the dagger, his gaze flicking to the medallion with a flicker of unease. "You cannot stop what has already begun. Your soul is mine. Your life will make me a god." Julien's jaw tightened, his voice a growl, his Creole accent thick with defiance. "You'll have to take it first, Leroux," he said, stepping into the circle, the medallion's light burning brighter, its hum a steady pulse that made the vampires surrounding the altar hiss and recoil, their pale skin sizzling as the glow touched them. "Let the girl go. This is between you and me." From the shadows of a nearby mausoleum, Celeste Moreau watched, her green eyes sharp with focus, her small derringer gripped in her hand. At 28, she was a storm of courage, her practical blouse and trousers smudged with dirt, her auburn hair tied back, her journalist's instinct to document the truth now secondary to her need to protect Julien and the others. Eloise Dubois crouched beside her, her red dress torn, her face streaked with tears after her betrayal, coerced by Leroux's threats, but now determined to make things right. Celeste's gaze flicked to the altar, to the young woman bound there, her screams a desperate plea for help. "We need to get to her," Celeste whispered, her voice low, meant for Eloise alone. "Julien's got Leroux distracted. We move now, untie her, get her out of here." Eloise nodded, her hands trembling but her expression resolute, her beads clinking softly as she gripped the small knife she'd brought. "I'm with you," she whispered, her voice thick with guilt. "I owe him this. Owe you both." Back in the clearing, Leroux laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed through the cemetery, and raised his hand, signaling his coven. The vampires, 10 of them, their red eyes glowing, their claws extended, surged forward, their hisses a chorus of death as they closed in on Julien. He held the medallion high, its light flaring brighter, burning the nearest vampires as they lunged, their skin blistering as they shrieked in pain. He fired his revolver, the gunshot cracking through the night, the bullet hitting one vampire in the head, dropping it to the ground in a pool of black blood. But Leroux was faster, his movements a blur as he leaped from the altar, his claws slashing at Julien, who dodged just in time, the medallion's light burning Leroux's arm as he passed. The vampire hissed, his red eyes narrowing with rage, his voice a snarl. "You think that trinket will save you?" he spat, circling Julien like a predator, his fangs bared. "I've waited 30 years for this moment. Your father couldn't stop me, and neither will you." Julien's blood ran cold at the mention of his father, the 1895 case flashing through his mind, the bodies drained of blood, the ritual interrupted, his father's failure haunting him to his grave. You'll pay for what you did to him. Julian growled, lunging forward. The medallion aimed at LaRue's chest, its light searing the vampire's skin as he recoiled with a scream. I end the chaos. Celeste and Eloise darted toward the altar, keeping to the shadows of the oaks, their movements quick and silent. The vampires were focused on Julian, their hisses and shrieks filling the air as the medallion's light burned them, giving Celeste and Eloise a narrow window. They reached the altar, Celeste's derringer raised as she scanned for threats, while Eloise used her knife to cut the ropes binding the young woman, her hands shaking but steady. "It's okay," Celeste whispered to the girl, her voice calm despite the chaos, her green eyes soft with reassurance. "We're getting you out of here. Can you walk?" The girl nodded, her eyes wide with terror, her voice a trembling whisper. "Yes. Thank you." Eloise helped her to her feet, supporting her as they moved back toward the shadows, but a vampire broke away from the fight with Julian, its red eyes locking onto them, its hiss a promise of death as it lunged. Celeste fired her derringer, the shot hitting the vampire in the chest, drawing a shriek of pain as black blood oozed from the wound. But it kept coming, its claws slashing at her, catching her arm and drawing a sharp line of blood. She gritted her teeth, ignoring the pain, and fired again, the second shot hitting its head, dropping it to the ground in a lifeless heap. "Go!" she shouted to Eloise and the girl, pushing them toward the trees. "Get to the gate, I'll cover you." Back in the circle, Julian and LaRue were locked in a deadly dance, the medallion's light burning LaRue with every strike, but the vampire was relentless, his claws slashing at Julian's side, drawing blood that soaked through his shirt. Julian grunted in pain, but he didn't falter, his dark eyes blazing with resolve as he pressed the medallion against LaRue's chest, the light searing through the vampire's robe, burning his flesh with a sickening sizzle. LaRue screamed, his red eyes wide with agony, and staggered back, his voice a desperate snarl. "You'll die for this," he spat, raising his hand to summon the ritual's power, the circle glowing brighter, its red light flaring as the air crackled with dark energy. Julian felt a tug at his soul, a pull that made his vision blur, the spirit girl's voice echoing in his mind. Julian's, a reminder that he was the marked one, his life the key to LaRue's immortality. But Julian fought back, his hand tightening on the medallion, its light flaring brighter as he poured his will into it. The power of Mama Zora's potion and Father Antoine's holy water burning through the ritual's energy. "Not tonight," he growled, shoving the medallion into the center of the circle, its light exploding in a wave of silver, shattering the ash symbols and breaking the ritual's hold. The backlash was immediate, the circle's red glow extinguished, the air rippling with a shockwave that knocked LaRue to the ground, his scream echoing through the cemetery as the remaining vampires shrieked in agony, their connection to the ritual severed. Julian staggered, his vision swimming, the pull on his soul easing but leaving him drained, his side bleeding heavily from LaRue's claws. Celeste ran to him, her green eyes wide with fear as she dropped to her knees beside him, her hands pressing against his wound to stem the blood. "Julian," she cried, her voice trembling, her journalist's composure shattered by the sight of him hurt. "Stay with me. We're not done yet." LaRue struggled to his feet, his red eyes burning with rage, his charred flesh healing too quickly, a testament to his vampiric power. "You've only delayed the inevitable," he hissed, his voice a venomous promise as he backed into the shadows, his remaining vampires following, their hisses fading into the night. "I'll have your soul, marked one. Next time, you won't escape." Julian's vision blurred, his strength fading, but he managed a weak nod, his hand finding Celeste's, his voice a ragged whisper. "We stopped him. For now," he said, his Creole accent soft, his dark eyes meeting hers with a mix of gratitude and exhaustion. "You okay?" Celeste nodded, tears in her eyes as she helped him to his feet, her arm around his waist to support him. "I'm fine," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. "Eloise got the girl out there safe. But you. We need to get you to a doctor." They stumbled out of the clearing, the full moon's light guiding them back to the cemetery gates, the air heavy with the aftermath of the ritual's disruption. The cost had been high: Julian's blood, the lingering threat of LaRue, the knowledge that this wasn't over. But they'd saved a life, broken the ritual, and survived the night. As they reached the gates, Eloise and the young woman waiting, their faces pale but relieved, Julian felt Celeste's hand in his, a lifeline in the darkness. New Orleans was a city of ghosts, and they'd just added another chapter to its haunted history.